They say land doesn't just feed your body, it feeds your soul. And I know that sounds like something an old-timer would say over black coffee and a slice of peach pie. But I swear, the day I first stepped onto the ridge at the edge of Willow Bend, I felt a kind of peace settle in my bones, a kind I'd almost forgotten existed. I was 52, fresh off a messy divorce, 2 kids grown and gone, my back still strong enough to swing a post driver, but my heart ready for something quieter. I sold my contracting company down in Houston, cashed out every last dime, and bought 48 acres of rolling hills and stubborn creek that had been in someone else's family for generations. There was no HOA, no manicured lawns, just me, a tired barn, and a sky so wide it felt like starting over. For a whole year I lived like I'd outrun the world. I fixed fence lines, coaxed the land back to life, and started to believe in quiet again. But trouble, as it always does, found its way in, and this time it drove a white SUV with Clearview Estates, HOA stenciled on the door, slow rolling past my gate every other week. At first I figured they were lost, or maybe chasing a stray dog. But that SUV kept coming back, always idling at the north fence line, sometimes with someone in khakis stepping out and scribbling notes on a clipboard. I didn't pay it much mind. Where I come from, you respect your neighbors by staying out of their business. I should have known better. See, my land butts up to the rear of Clearview Estates, a master-planned patch of suburbia full of identical cul-de-sacs and mailbox smiles. When I bought my place, the title company made it clear the HOA had no rights to my parcel, no easements, nothing. We were 2 worlds, mine older and a little wilder, theirs tidy and measured, but that's not how they saw it. For them, my land was just an empty buffer, waiting for the right surveyor's flag. The first real warning was a line of bright orange flags planted a good 6 feet inside my boundary. I thought maybe the county was checking for utilities, but no notice came, and the county never surveys private land without a letter. I dusted off my old GPS gear, used to be an engineer before I built houses, and walked the line myself. Those flags were on my dirt. That night I reread every deed and plat I owned. Still clean, no easements, no encroachments. But something in my gut tightened. A week later I found 3 men in HOA polos marking my side of the ridge with orange paint. Preliminary layout for Storm Basin Extension 1 said, like I should have known what that meant. I told them plain as day, this is my property. They muttered about Phase 4 expansion zones and municipal partnership and left. But not before one drop deed overlap into the conversation like a threat. That phrase stuck with me. I called the county, spoke to a clerk named Ben, who laughed when I told him what they'd said: no expansion plans, no Phase 4, nothing on file. You sure they're not bluffing? He asked. I'm sure there's something, I told him. But the flags multiplied, marching down the ridge in tight formation like a silent invasion. One morning I found a zip-tied note on my gate: access needed for environmental assessment. Please coordinate with HOA. I didn't call, I didn't answer. Instead I hammered up no trespassing signs and set a trail cam where I saw their boot prints in the mud. Then, just before dawn on a Saturday, came the real push. A backhoe, a flatbed, workers in hard hats, unloading silt fence and cones right at my fence line. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, blood in my ears. I didn't storm down the hill. That's what they wanted, a scene to twist a reason to call the sheriff. Instead, I filmed every inch, the backhoe chewing up my grass, the supervisor giving me a fake neighborly wave, the clipboard with Clearview Estates Phase 4, stormwater stenciled at the top, the boundary lines in faded red running right across my deed. That night I sent photos, GPS overlays, and drone footage to my old buddy Ellis, now on the county's environmental review board. They can't do that, he shot back, not without a permit or easement. I waited. Patience, my dad always said, is how you win the war, not the battle. When I found fresh survey stakes 20 feet inside my pasture, one marked Sway Basin Outlet Number 3, I knew patience had run its course. I drove to the HOA office, all white columns and fake lamps, and asked for whoever was in charge of digging up my land. That's when I met Clay Merriman, HOA president handshake like a dead fish eyes that never quite met yours. There's ambiguity with the property line, he said, waving a printout at me. We can work this out, maybe some compensation for cooperation. I told him what I wanted was for them to stay off my land. That afternoon, I filed formal trespass and disturbance claims with the county. Sent copies to Ellis, the zoning board, even the sheriff's department. 48 hours later, county trucks rolled up. They measured, took notes, and the Inspector Valerie boots, caked in red dirt, whistled low. Multiple code violations. Fines could top 6 figures. The backhoe was parked, but the ground was still torn open. I stood on the ridge that night, arms folded, feeling the land's injury like my own. But the HOA wasn't done. The next morning, another crew arrived, this time with a lawyer, Beau Greg Landry, smooth talker with zero dirt under his nails, spouting statutes about inactive pasture and cooperative zoning overlays. I held up my phone, red light blinking. The county's coming back tomorrow. Enforcement authority this time. For a moment, I saw something like fear flicker in his eyes, but they dropped new stakes anyway, started laying nylon lines like they owned the place. I sent a cease and desist copy to everyone, but 2 days later, I came back from town and found my fence partially dismantled, a skid steer idling where my grass used to be fresh trench cut like a wound. I called Valerie. 90 minutes later, the county was back with a stop work order, $25,000 per day if they so much as moved a shovel. The digging stopped, but the HOA changed tactics. 5 days later, I got an official-looking envelope notice of disputed boundary line mediation hearing requested. Classic stalling, tie me up in legal limbo, push the work through claim infrastructure was critical after the fact. That's when Ellis came out in person, bringing a state-licensed surveyor. We walked every inch, found the original iron pins buried under old roots. "You've got them cold," Ellis said, clapping my shoulder. "They'll try to wear you out, but the law's on your side." At the HOA's special board session, Think Town Hall crossed with bad reality TV, I showed up in muddy boots and a cap that read, "This land was earned." Clay tried to grandstand with old regional compacts, but I countered with maps, drone footage, the stop work order. The board secretary, Fran, finally said they needed legal counsel present. That was the moment I knew the board wasn't united anymore. The cracks had started. But the real shift came at the county review hearing. 5 people on the board, none of them impressed by bluster, listened as I walked them through plat overlays, GPS data footage of the fence coming down. I ended with a simple truth. If it happened to me, it'll happen again unless you stop it. They voted unanimous, $150,000 fine, 60 days to restore the land, and a freeze on all HOA development permits pending investigation. And that's when the house of cards really started to fall. Whistleblower emails, resignations, and then the Tribune ran a front-page article, HOA overreach costs clear view, $150K. More fines loom. Residents flooded the county's Facebook page demanding answers. At an emergency HOA meeting in the school gym, Clay tried to blame everyone but himself until Marlene Standish, oldest resident in the neighborhood, stood up and called him a liar to his face. The video hit 100,000 views by Monday. Settlement offers started showing up first, $175,000, then $250,000, finally $300,000 if I'd just keep quiet and walk away. I forwarded every one to the county. "We'll see you in court," I replied. The state took notice: fraud, misuse of funds, falsified documents. Clay's name was mud. The new board president, Naomi Singh, came to my gate with an honest apology and a real plan: restore the land. No future work without written permission, full transparency going forward. They meant it. I saw it in the way Naomi handed back my no trespassing sign, the one they'd ripped down that first week. And I saw it in the faces of residents like Sarah Hastings, who wrote to thank me for drawing a line and not letting it move. The county used the fine money to set up a landowner rights workshop taught by folks like me, so maybe the next rancher won't have to fight the same fight. I wish I could say that was the end, but truth is land wars never really end. They just go quiet for a while. These days, the grass grows tall again on the ridge. The creek runs clear. The fence stands strong. Sometimes when the sun is setting and the wind carries the scent of new growth, I'll walk out to the old iron marker and place my hand on the earth. They thought I was just a man with land, but really I was a man with memory, with law, with will, and now finally with peace, because the land is mine and always was. So tell me, was I right to dig in? Or does the world belong to whoever draws the straightest line on a map? Leave your take below, because out here justice isn't handed down. It's staked in the ground. And sometimes it takes a whole community to hold that line.